Okay, picture the scene. It's Tuesday night, January 20th, 2026. The air in northern Italy is crisp, probably freezing, actually. You're standing in the shadow of one of the true cathedrals of world football, the Stadio Giuseppe Meazza, or, as we all know it, the San Siro.
It's one of those places, isn't it? One of few left in Europe that has that genuine old school weight to it. The concrete towers, the steep stands, it just creates this kind of acoustic trap that you can physically feel when the chants start.
Absolutely. And tonight, the stage is set for a massive Champions League showdown. We're looking at Matchday 7 of the league phase. The home side, Inter Milan, welcoming an Arsenal team that is, well, frankly, looking terrifyingly good.
It's arguably the headline fixture of the entire round. I mean, you have the history and the fortress of Inter going up against an Arsenal side that, from everything we've read this morning, is just operating at the absolute peak of its powers.
And that is exactly why we're here. Welcome to the deep dive. We aren't here to just, toss a coin and tell you who might win. We've got a stack of expert previews, tactical breakdowns, and prediction models right here. Our mission is to really unpack the tactical nuances. We want to understand these conflicting styles and figure out what is actually at stake for both clubs.
And it's fascinating because on the surface, you might look at the table and think one thing, but when you dig into the momentum, the stability, the specific motivations, the picture gets a lot more complex.
So let's dive right in. The sources we're looking at paint a pretty incredible picture of where Arsenal stands right now. And I have to say, the phrase perfect record just keeps popping up.
It's not a phrase you hear often in the Champions League, especially this deep into the tournament. We're talking Matchday 7.
Right.
6 games played, 6 wins recorded. Arsenal are currently topping the entire league phase table.
6 from 6. I mean, in the modern game with the schedules and everything, that is just absurd consistency.
It is. It speaks to a level of dominance that Mikel Arteta has been building towards. But here's the interesting bit of math for you, and this is crucial for the psychology of the game. Because of that perfect start, the pressure on Arsenal is, well, it's effectively 0.
They're already through.
For all intents and purposes, yeah. To mathematically guarantee a top 8 finish, which is the golden ticket, skips the playoff round. They need one single point, a draw.
Just a draw. That changes the complexion completely. But let's flip the script. Inter Milan. Looking at the sources, they aren't quite hitting those same heights in the group, are they?
No, and this is where the friction comes from. They're sitting lower down the table. They haven't had that flawless run. But, and this is a huge but context is everything, they're playing at home. And the sources really emphasize that Inter has this specific motivation to close the gap. They need to bring this game alive because playing at the San Siro is their superpower.
The sources mention that explicitly, that Inter can up their performance when the lights are bright. Is that just a cliche or is there something to back that up?
It's definitely more than a cliche. It's about the intensity of their defensive block, which we'll get to.
Right.
But first, you have to look at their domestic form. You can't just judge them on Europe. In Serie A, they are flying.
Yeah, I saw that note. They recently beat Lecce.
They did, and that win stretched their lead in the Serie A title race. So you have the leaders of Italy against the leaders of this Champions League group. And Inter has this reputation, traditionally, of being incredibly solid at home.
So on one side, you have the Italian champions-elect, tough to break down, in their fortress. On the other side, I'll just talk Arsenal's form. The source material says they are unbeaten.
Unbeaten in recent matches across all competitions. Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup. It's not just that they're winning, it's like they've forgotten how to lose.
That is momentum you just can't buy.
Exactly. The sources highlight the strong attacking and defensive balance under Arteta. They're not just scoring for fun, they're not leaking goals either. It's a complete machine.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have the context. Arsenal, the unstoppable force. Inter, the immovable object at home. But how does that actually look on the grass? Let's get into the tactical warfare.
This is where the deep dive really earns its keep. If you look at the tactical previews, there's a very clear expectation for how Inter is going to set this up.
The phrase disciplined structure jumped out at me. Now, for the listener who might hear that and just think boring, what are we actually talking about here? Is this just 11 men behind the ball?
Not necessarily behind the ball in a panic, but certainly behind the ball by design. Inter knows they can't just open up against this Arsenal team. If they get into a shootout, they'll get picked apart.
Okay.
So the expectation is a very compact midfield. They're going to sit in a shape designed specifically to frustrate Arsenal.
So is it accurate to say they're going to park the bus?
I'd push back on that term a little. Parking the bus implies passivity, just standing there hoping. This is more about a mid to low block designed to clog the central areas.
Clogging the center.
Yeah.
Why there?
Because that's where Arsenal kills you. If you let players like Odegaard or Rice operate in those pockets of space between your midfield and defense, it's game over.
Right.
Inter wants to force Arsenal to play where Inter feels comfortable out wide, far from goal. It's a trap, essentially.
A trap. Explain that.
Well, think about it. If you're compact and disciplined, you invite the other team to push higher and higher up the pitch to try and find a gap. And once Arsenal pushes up, what happens to the space behind them?
It opens right up into the counterattack.
Exactly. And the sources identify the specific weapon Inter has for this, the partnership of Lautaro Martinez and Marcus Thuram.
I wanted to ask about them. That sounds like a nightmare duo on the break.
It is. It's a classic partnership. You have Lautaro Martinez, who is this sort of pit bull of a striker, technical, aggressive. He drops deep, links play. He winds defenders up.
And then Thuram provides the verticality, the direct threat.
Precisely. Thuram has that raw pace and power to run the channels. So the pattern is, Inter wins the ball back in that clogged midfield, and they immediately look for Lautaro to hold it up, or they launch into space for Thuram to chase.
So the game plan is frustrate, steal, release the hounds.
In a nutshell, yes. It's absorbing pressure and then acting like a coiled spring.
Okay, so what's Arsenal's answer? The sources say they'll be in their usual 4-3-3, but if the center is blocked, what's the solution?
Their goal, as always, will be controlling possession. They want to own the ball, but the key isn't going to be forcing it through the center. That plays right into Inter's hands. It's going to be about going around them.
The sources specifically mentioned exploiting wide areas.
And this is crucial. If the middle is congested, the space is on the wings. The previews highlight Gabriel Martinelli and Noni Madueke as the key players here.
Martinelli and Madueke, so speed against structure.
Speed, but also what we call qualitative superiority in those 1v1s. They have to stretch that Inter defense horizontally.
How does that work in practice?
So, imagine Inter's defense is a tight rubber band. If Martinelli stays hugging the touchline on the left and Madueke does the same on the right, Inter's defenders have a choice. Do the wingbacks go out to meet them?
And if they do, it stretches that rubber band.
Exactly. And suddenly those gaps in the middle, the ones Inter tried to close, start to open up.
But if they stay narrow?
Then Martinelli and Madueke have time and space to drive at them one-on-one. It's pick your poison.
So that's the game. Arsenal wants to stretch them till they snap. Inter wants to stay tight until Arsenal makes a mistake.
You've got it. And the sources note that Martinelli is in good scoring form, so he's the danger man. If he gets isolated one-on-one with a defender, that's where the structure starts to crumble.
This raises a big question about personnel, though. We talked about Arsenal's perfect record. They basically just need a point. And the sources mention rotation risks.
Yeah, this is a fascinating little wrinkle. Because Arsenal has big Premier League fixtures coming up, there's a suggestion that Arteta might rotate the squad a bit.
Now, usually when I hear rotation in a big Champions League game, I get nervous. But I saw some names in the report that actually got me excited. The text mentions potential inclusions of Miles Lewis-Skelly, Eze, and Marino.
That really speaks to the depth Arsenal has built, doesn't it?
Seriously. I mean, seeing Eze listed there, that's a serious option to bring into the side.
It is. Ebereki Eze brings something totally different. He's not just a passer, he's a ball carrier. He glides past people. Against a low block like Inter's, someone who can dribble through a compact midfield is like a cheat code.
And Lewis-Skelly, giving youth a chance on a stage like the San Siro. That's bold.
It shows huge confidence. He's been developing into this hybrid role, can play left back but steps into midfield. He gives them control, technical security. But it also poses a question. Can a young player handle that atmosphere?
Good question. The report also notes that Gabriel Jesus is likely to lead the line if there's rotation.
Right. And this is a key tactical shift from, say, a Kai Havertz.
How so? Because he's not a traditional target man. The source calls him a pressing threat.
Exactly. If you play a traditional striker, they might wait for service. Gabriel Jesus doesn't wait. He hunts.
So even if they rotate, the intensity doesn't drop.
If anything, it might go up. Jesus is relentless. If Inter is trying to build from the back, having him chasing them down creates chaos. It forces hurried clearances. So rotation doesn't mean weaker. It just means different problems for Inter.
And on the Inter side, any key personnel we need to spotlight. We mentioned the strikers, but who's running the show?
The engine room, as the source calls it. You have to look at Federico Di Marco and Niccolò Barella.
Di Marco and Barella, two Italian internationals.
They're described as the creative midfield engine. Barella, in particular, is everywhere. He links the play. He transitions defense to attack.
And Di Marco, his left foot is like a wand.
World-class delivery. If Arsenal wants to stop those counterattacks, they don't just stop the strikers, they have to cut the supply line. They need to stop Barella from turning and Di Marco from crossing.
So the battle isn't just Martinelli versus the defense. It's Arsenal's midfield trying to suffocate Barella before he can even look up.
Precisely. If Barella has time on the ball, Arsenal is in trouble.
I love how this is shaping up. You have the unstoppable force of Arsenal, possibly with fresh legs like Eze and Marino, against the tactical discipline of Inter. So, what happens?
The million-dollar question.
The sources look to the prediction models, and frankly, they seem confused, or at least split down the middle.
Torn is probably the right word. It just highlights how tight this fixture is. When the algorithms can't agree, you know you're in for a real contest.
Let's look at the scenarios. Scenario A is labeled the defensive grind.
Right. One of the models predicts an Inter Milan 1-0 win.
1-0, the classic Italian job.
It really is. That prediction relies entirely on that discipline structure working perfectly. Inter scores one goal, maybe on a transition, maybe a set piece, and then they just shut the door.
Is that realistic against this Arsenal attack, though? Keeping them to 0?
It's difficult. Very difficult. But if anyone can do it, it's an Italian side at home needing a result.
Okay, that's scenario A. What about B?
Scenario B backs the form guide. It predicts an Arsenal 2-1 win.
And this is based on?
Superior form and European consistency. The idea here is that Arsenal has too many weapons. Even if Inter defends well, eventually the dam breaks. And because Arsenal usually score, as the betting insights note, it's hard to see them being kept off the scoresheet entirely.
There's also a mention of the draw, of course.
Yes, a heavily tipped outcome. Which makes sense. Two heavyweights with different strengths. Sometimes that just cancels out. A 1-1 suits Arsenal perfectly.
Speaking of betting, the sources brought up the both teams to score market.
BTTS.
Yeah.
And the logic is sound. Inter is so dangerous at home, they almost always score at the San Siro. Arsenal is unbeaten and scoring freely, so the idea that both keepers keep a clean sheet seems unlikely.
But the over-under goals market is mixed.
That's the uncertainty we talked about. Is it a 1-0 tactical chess match, or does an early goal turn it into a 2-1 or 3-2 open game? The experts just can't agree on the openness of the game.
It really comes down to who dictates the tempo, doesn't it? If Inter drags Arsenal into the mud, it's 1-0. If Arsenal makes it a track meet, it's 2-1.
Exactly. And that's why that team news about rotation is so key. If Arsenal plays a slightly disjointed team, maybe that gives Inter an edge. Or, flip side, maybe players like Eze are so hungry they play with more energy than the regulars.
That's a great point. Sometimes the B team, if you can even call them that, is more dangerous. They have a point to prove. They aren't playing to preserve energy. They're playing to win a spot.
And remember, Arsenal only needs a point. Inter needs to win. The psychological burden is different.
So let's try to summarize this for you, the listener. We've unpacked a lot here.
If we boil it down, it's Arsenal's possession game and that perfect record going up against Inter's home fortress and a structured counterattacking system.
Arsenal are the slight favorites because of that unbeaten run.
They are. The data says they're the best team in the competition right now. But the sources are very clear. Do not underestimate Inter's ability to up their performance at the San Siro. A shock result is entirely possible.
So if you're an Arsenal fan, don't get too comfortable. And if you're an Inter fan, don't lose hope.
It's going to be a fascinating watch. The tactical battle alone is worth the price of admission.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We talked about the pressure. Arsenal has 6 wins. They're basically through. Inter is the one chasing.
Right. The burden is on the home side.
Usually we think of pressure as a bad thing. But here's the thought. In a tournament where Arsenal is already so comfortable, does the lack of pressure actually make them more dangerous?
Go on. Usually teams lose focus when they're safe.
Well, think about it. If Arsenal plays with freedom, with no fear of losing, does that make them unpredictable? Does that allow players like Eze to try the audacious flick, the risky pass, the shot from 30 yards that they wouldn't try in a do-or-die game?
That's a scary thought for Inter. A relaxed Arsenal might be the most creative version of Arsenal. When you remove the fear of failure, you unlock pure expression.
Exactly. Sometimes when you have nothing to lose, you win everything.
But then again, complacency is the enemy of perfection. If they're too relaxed, Lautaro Martinez will punish them in a heartbeat.
And that is why we watch the game. Tuesday, January 20th, San Siro. It's going to be a classic.
Can't wait.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Enjoy the match, everyone.
Enjoy the football.